Now, Patrick Cook here. Hey, thanks for coming back to the next session where after we have set up our DaVinci Resolve project and we have our animation that has been put on into a timeline we tweaked it up a little bit, improved the coloring, made the colors a little bit more saturated, worked on the contrast a bit, sharpened it, and we put some text, some titling in there. So we're in pretty good shape. Now, let me just tell you now that this is not necessarily absolutely final for me. I'm moving ahead here because I want to show you how to, how to do these things. Me personally, I would take a little bit more time to get my speeds just where I want them. I would put more titling in than this. I probably would fuss around a little bit with the sharpening, maybe the coloring. But for tutorial purposes, everything I'm showing you here is the steps that you would take. All right. So once you have your DaVinci Resolve project where you want it and you're ready to render it out, this is how you go about doing it. Now, the DaVinci Resolve has the edit page, which you know, and we were into the color page. It also has what's called the delivery page. All right, and that's this little rocket right here. So I just clicked on the delivery. So this is the delivery page. I'm going to expand that so we can see it. Now, you've got all kinds of options here in terms of how you render this out. Now, typically, what you're going to do is you're going to decide where that you want DaVinci Resolve to render it to. And I'll tell you this, here's what I do. I will go into our folder. This is our Mandelbulb3D Tutorial folder that we made a long time ago. And I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call it Renders. Or you could call it DaVinci Resolve. You could call it whatever you want. The point is that there I have a place for DaVinci Resolve to output my render. So we'll leave that open for now. All right, so I'm going to browse to the location, and I am going to go to my videos, tutorial, and renders. That's the folder I want to output it to. Give it a name, Mandelbulb3D, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to say 2K, which represents 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to say for review. Okay, just for review. I want to output a render and then play it back and see how it looks and decide if that's what I want to do. Now, we have a number of different formats that we can write this thing out to. We have QuickTime, which is the .mov. That's the Apple QuickTime. YouTube will take that. We also have the MP4, which I prefer because the MP4 is just about everybody will take it, including YouTube, when you try to upload it to their venue. It's also compressed so that the file sizes are smaller, but it's not too bad in terms of loss of quality. So I like that. Things like TIFF and PNG and JPEG, those are obviously stills. You don't output your videos to those formats. MKV is a very, very good format. Its compression is good. It's not that lossy. Unfortunately, there's a lot of venues that will not take MKV. So if you want to play it safe, go with MP4. Just about everybody takes MP4, and you could play an MP4 on your mobile device. You know, your Android or your iPhone or your iPad or any laptop. MP4 I have found is kind of the safest in terms of your output format. All right, I'm going to pick MP4. Here is my resolution. I can change that. I can change it. I can change it for my output. If I were to go 720p, let's say this one right here, DaVinci Resolve would downscale my project, which is 1980 by 1080. It would downscale it as it outputted it. The tricky part is when you try to pick something like that, the 3840 or 4K, then DaVinci Resolve is trying to upscale it. It does a really good job, but that's not how you should go about upscaling. There's a whole different technique for that. And as a matter of fact, if you're interested, look up in the DaVinci Resolve documentation, look up Superscale. And I'll just write that on the screen. Superscale, that's how you upscale your outputs. But don't try to upscale it here. Doesn't really, it works, but it's not really your best choice. All right, so 1920 by 1080 HD. There is my frame rate. All right, and because the project is set for 60 frames per second, I can't change it here, but we want 60. All right, now the rest of it here is pretty straightforward. All right, I don't normally have to do anything down in this area because these defaults are actually quite good. There is one thing to keep in mind. It's this thing called quality. Now, for review purposes, I always choose best. All right, but what happens is when you output as best and then you upload that to YouTube, they will actually compress it. They'll actually reduce it because that's too many. That's too much quality than YouTube will take. So you can do things with this, and you probably do your reading and decide just what kind of quality you want, which is dependent upon where you upload your final rendering. All right, so from here, all I have to do is add it to the render queue, and that went over to my render queue. And then I will then punch render all, and it will begin to render this as this file name to this location as a 1080p, 60 frames per second, best quality. All right? All right? So I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to start rendering this, and I'm going to call up my task manager of my Windows PC, and I want to show you how the DaVinci Resolve is using your GPU to do your rendering. All right, so let's and then we'll close out this session. So let's put that down and let's get my task manager up. Get it over here where we can see it. Good. Okay. So go to my performance. Now here's all my CPUs. And when I'm rendering, we're going to find that these CPUs aren't that active, but the GPU would be. All right. So now just keep an eye out right here. This is the amount of memory that's being used by the GPU. All right, and this is the memory usage, and we're going to see that go up. And we're going to go over to the CPUs, and we're not going to see a whole lot of activity when we're rendering from DaVinci Resolve. You remember when we rendered from Mandelbulb3D that all of these CPUs or threads were utilized. It's a different story with DaVinci Resolve. All right, so let's render this a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean. Here we go. Render all. Not a whole lot of activity on the CPUs, but look at the GPU. Look at the activity on that. All right, and all the memory usage went up. So DaVinci Resolve is utilizing your GPU for rendering. If a GPU does not exist in your machine, it will use CPU, but you're not going to be happy. If you don't have a GPU of some capability with DaVinci Resolve, you might want to rethink getting into DaVinci Resolve. Check it out, do your reading, look at the recommended PC capabilities before you dive into DaVinci Resolve, and save yourself some disappointment if your PC is underpowered. Okay, so on the next session, we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at our rendering, and then we're going to decide what to do from there based upon that review. I'll see you in the next session.